In the infinite depths of the cosmos, where stars were mere embers in the vast tapestry of creation, the elder gods watched over the universe with timeless eyes. They were witnesses to the birth and death of galaxies, custodians of balance and guardians of secrets too terrible to comprehend. Yet, among all the races they observed, only one stirred unease within their ageless souls: humanity. A fragile species born of chaos, rising not through strength, but through a relentless, unfathomable hunger that defied the natural order. For even the gods, infinite in power, knew to fear what they could not understand. In the vast emptiness of space, where silence was sovereign and the boundaries of time became blurred, the elder gods resided in quiet majesty. These beings, older than the stars themselves, were not mere observers of the universe. They were its architects, weaving the threads of creation with hands that had never known error. To lesser races, they were myths, stories whispered in awe across millennia. Yet their existence was as real as the pulsing cores of galaxies, their presence etched into the fabric of reality itself. Among these titans of power, a singular anomaly began to occupy their thoughts: humanity. Born on a small, blue world orbiting a forgettable star, they were insignificant in every conceivable way. Their lifespan was but a flicker compared to the eternal radiance of the cosmos, their reach limited to the fragile atmosphere that clung to their planet. Yet, despite their frailty, there was something about them that captured the attention of the eternal watchers. Something that could not be ignored. The elder gods had witnessed countless civilizations rise and fall, from the slumbering giants that danced among the nebulae to the cold, metallic hives that consumed worlds without conscience. The patterns were always the same. Birth, growth, greed, collapse. A cycle as predictable as the orbits of planets. But humanity was different. Their path was chaotic, unpredictable, and, above all, relentless. They did not simply follow the patterns, they shattered them, redrawing the lines of destiny with each new epoch of their existence. What troubled the elder gods most was humanity's hunger. It wasn't just a desire for survival or prosperity. It was a deep, insatiable need that seemed to burn in their very essence. They hungered for knowledge, for power, for control. They tore into the unknown not with caution, but with a reckless abandon that left nothing untouched. Where other species sought harmony, humanity chose conquest. Where others settled, they expanded. Where others hesitated, they acted. The elder gods, in their infinite wisdom, could not fully grasp this drive. It defied logic, defied the natural order of things. Even when faced with their own extinction, humanity did not falter. They fought, adapted, and endured. Their wars were monuments to destruction, yet out of the ashes they always rose again, stronger and more determined than before. To the elder gods, this was both fascinating and terrifying. In the stillness of the void, they observed humanity's progress with a mixture of curiosity and unease. They had seen what happened to civilizations that reached too far, that consumed too much. The universe was littered with the ruins of those who had dared to challenge its balance. Yet humanity did not seem to care. They pressed forward, oblivious to the danger, driven by a fire that could not be extinguished. And so the elder gods watched, their eyes fixed on this tiny, defiant race. They did not intervene, for such was not their way. But in the depths of their eternal minds, a question began to form, a question that would haunt them across the ages. What was humanity's true purpose? And would their hunger consume not just themselves, but the entire cosmos? In the forgotten depths of space, where light was reduced to flickering shadows, the elder gods commented in silence. Their presence was felt but never seen, a looming quietness that carried the weight of ages. The vast libraries they maintained contained the knowledge of eons, every star's birth and death recorded, every galaxy's rise and fall etched into eternity. These were their sanctuaries, guardians of the truths that could shape worlds or destroy them. Now, they gathered once again around tables of shimmering crystal, their forms radiating with power beyond comprehension. In these moments of gathering, the questions that could not be answered remained unspoken, yet felt deeply. They had watched humanity for centuries, keeping vigil as they conquered stars and consumed worlds. Their actions were without precedent, their drive unrelenting. The elder gods could sense it. Their hunger was not merely for survival, but for something far greater, something beyond the grasp of even the oldest races. It is not their strength, One elder god observed, their voice like the hum of a dying star. It is their hunger. They do not seek to exist. They seek to consume, to possess, to expand beyond limits that should have been their end. Another responded, a ripple of energy traveling through the cosmic ether. We have watched countless civilizations. They rise, they grow, they collapse, but humans defy this pattern. They devour worlds and yet endure. They destroy, yet they survive. Why? The question hung in the silence. It was not a query they could answer. The patterns they had once known, the cycles they had come to understand, no longer applied. Humanity was not bound by the rules that governed other civilizations. They did not perish under their own weight. Instead, they grew stronger, driven by an insatiable need for more knowledge, more power, more territory. What is it about them? One of the elder gods wondered aloud, their voice trembling as though echoing through the void. They seek to conquer, yet they understand so little of what they take. Their curiosity was not born of admiration, but of confusion and unease. Humans acted as if they were oblivious to the dangers that had doomed countless others before them. They ventured into the unknown without fear, consuming whatever they found with reckless abandon. Even as civilizations collapsed around them, they persisted, always pressing forward, as if unaware of the cosmic forces that had silenced others. We have always sought to guide the younger races, another elder god said, their forms shimmering with the light of a dying star. But humanity, they do not listen. They do not heed the warnings we have placed across the cosmos. The others remained silent, their presence a testament to the weight of that truth. The elder gods had always believed that their warnings were enough, that the knowledge of their existence alone would be enough to deter the foolish from marching headlong into destruction. Yet humanity ignored them. They seemed unaware or worse, indifferent to the dangers that awaited them. We will warn them, one elder god proposed, their voice filled with a rare urgency. Perhaps if we show them the peril they face, they will turn back from their path of destruction. But there was a hesitation, a quiet fear that hung in the air. To warn them is to give them knowledge they were not meant to have, another observed. It is to disturb the balance, to interfere in ways we have never done before. The others fell silent, their thoughts clouded by doubt. For all their power, the elder gods could feel the weight of their own limitations. Could they truly alter the course of humanity? Or was this a test even they could not pass? They had watched for millennia, studied humanity from the far reaches of the void. They had cataloged their rise, their thirst, and their relentless drive, and though they could feel the danger humanity posed, they could not yet fathom what the consequences of their continued existence might be. Time passed slowly for the elder gods, endless and unyielding. They had witnessed the eons stretch out before them like waves crashing against infinite shores. Civilizations had come and gone, their rise and fall measured in the lifespans of stars. Yet, humanity pushed through the void like an unstoppable tide. Their progress was not linear, it was fractured, driven by a constant need to consume, expand, and conquer. They pressed onward, ignoring the warnings that echoed from the shadows of creation. It wasn't long before humanity began to encounter the ruins of old civilizations, relics from a time when the universe was younger, when the balance was more easily maintained. These were the remnants of worlds that had gone silent, their history lost in the vastness of space. The elder gods had guarded these secrets, knowing that to uncover them was to risk awakening ancient powers that were meant to rest. But humanity did not hesitate. They dug deeper into the crusts of forgotten planets, scraping the last fragments of knowledge from the ashes of civilizations that had once shaped the galaxy. They were driven not by curiosity alone, but by a hunger that refused to be satisfied. Their machines, their minds, and their ambitions moved faster than the elder gods had expected. Where others paused to reflect, to understand, humanity plunged forward, consuming whatever they could find, without hesitation or mercy. In one distant system, they found a world that should have remained buried. A world whose secrets were meant to stay dormant. Beneath the surface, slumbering beneath layers of dust and silence, was power long forgotten, a force that had not stirred since the dawn of time. This force had been sealed away by the elder gods themselves, bound by ancient pacts to ensure that such power would remain dormant. But humans could not resist. They unearthed it. They probed it. And when they did, they awakened something older, darker, and far more terrifying than Chiu could have imagined. The elder gods felt the disturbance ripple across the universe. It was as if a tremor had pulled at the very threads of organics of reality. They could sense the awakening, the unleashing of forces that had been sealed away for eons. The balance had shifted, and humanity had played a part in that shift. It was not just the awakening of one force, but the stirring of many ancient powers that had been locked away for eternity, powers that would now seek balance, even if that balance meant the end of everything humanity held dear. The elder gods knew what would follow. The cosmos had always struck back against those who sought to upset its natural order. And now, the universe would push back harder than humanity could ever anticipate. The forces they had awakened were not just old, they were vengeful, hungry, and unforgiving. As the awakening unfolded, the universe became a place of growing chaos. Civilizations that had remained dormant for eons stirred from their slumber, their memories of ancient wrongs and forgotten vengeance reignited. The balance that had kept the cosmos in harmony was shattered. The elder gods, bound by laws they themselves had imposed, could only watch in silence. They had foreseen the consequences, yet they could not intervene. Humanity, now aware of their own potential, embraced the powers they had awakened with a relentless hunger. They were no longer content to explore the stars, to trade or discover. Their ambitions grew darker, more desperate. The forces they had released were beyond their control. Worlds began to fall, consumed by fires of conflict and desire. It was not a slow decline, but a rapid descent into anarchy. Whole galaxies were plundered, their resources snatched by the insatiable machines of humanity. The age of discovery gave way to an age of conquest. Empires fell, not by external forces, but from within. The elder gods could feel it, the fracturing of reality itself. They had known of humanity's destructive tendencies, but what they had not expected was the scale of the consequences. The forces humanity had awakened did not stop at mere worlds. They began to tear through the very fabric of the universe, seeking a balance that could no longer be maintained. The elder gods could do nothing but watch. Their power, limitless as it was, could not alter the path humanity had taken. They had always been guardians, stewards of the universe. But even they were bound by rules far older than time itself. Humanity's hunger had awakened something else entirely, a spiral of chaos that threatened to consume everything they had touched. It was no longer just the fate of humanity that was at stake, but the balance of the entire cosmos. The elder gods had learned to predict the rise and fall of civilizations, but humanity had broken every rule they had known. They had built empires and torn them down, consumed worlds and left ruins in their wake. The elder gods could feel the ripples of chaos spreading, the consequences of a species unbound by the limitations that governed others. The universe was no longer a place of quiet harmony. It was a place of fire and destruction, of wars that would rage for eons. The elder gods could sense the shadows gathering, the forces that had slumbered awakening in response to humanity's recklessness. And yet, despite the ruin and the chaos, humanity continued. Driven by a hunger that refused to be satisfied, they pressed onward, ignorant of the forces they had awoken, ignorant of the impending doom that waited for them. In the midst of this cosmic turmoil, the elder gods found themselves in a strange, uneasy silence. Their once confident vigilance had faded into an almost contemplative stillness. For countless eons they had stood as protectors of balance, guardians of creation itself. But now they were mere observers of a universe unraveling beyond their control. The very rules they had upheld, the order they had maintained, seemed fragile in the face of humanity's relentless drive. The patterns of existence they had once understood so well, rise, growth, and eventual decline, were no longer sufficient. Humanity had not merely followed these cycles, they had rewritten them, tearing through the fabric of the cosmos with a hunger that knew no bounds. The elder gods, infinitely ancient and infinitely wise, had long believed they understood the universe's rhythms. Yet, they had underestimated humanity's unique, almost unnatural persistence. The signs of destruction were now everywhere. Galaxies that had once thrived, flourishing with the echoes of ancient civilizations, were reduced to tombs of silence. Stars dimmed, black holes grew hungrier, devouring entire systems in their relentless quest for matter. The very essence of the cosmos seemed corrupted by humanity's relentless thirst. They did not simply expand, they consumed with a violence that no other race had dared to provoke. And while many of these forces that humanity had awakened had begun to turn inward, feeding on themselves in a deadly cycle, the elder gods could feel their presence growing stronger. There was no retreat, no path backward. The forces humanity had unleashed were too vast, too ancient, too powerful to be contained. Even the elder gods, towering figures of reality itself, could not deny the inevitability of their return. Yet there was a strange, lingering doubt that gnawed at the edges of the elder gods' consciousness. If humanity was driving itself toward destruction, why did they continue? What force within them kept their hunger alive, their drive to consume, to conquer? The elder gods knew the danger of interfering in the natural course of events, yet their failure to act, to guide humanity or stem the tide, now seemed a blunder of catastrophic proportions. The universe was no longer steady. The once clear boundaries between creation and oblivion blurred. Even the vast void between galaxies seemed restless, no longer at peace. The elder gods could feel the weight of their inaction, their hesitation, as if some unseen force had bound them, preventing them from stepping into the unfolding chaos. Humans, they now saw, were no longer simply a threat to the cosmos, they had become part of its collapse. The very forces they had awakened would soon turn against not only themselves but everything around them. It was not just destruction they risked, but extinction of entire galaxies, of civilizations far older than they could ever comprehend. Yet, despite their knowledge and ancient wisdom, the elder gods could not grasp the full scope of humanity's insatiable hunger. They could feel its roots deep, unrelenting, like a fire that burned brighter the longer it was fed, but the source, the reason behind it, eluded them. And so, as the cosmos continued to spiral toward an unknown fate, the elder gods watched in silence, uncertain if they were powerless or if they had simply refused to act in time. The elder gods were no strangers to the weight of responsibility. For eons, they had observed countless civilizations, each rising from the dust of creation only to crumble beneath the weight of their own greed or ambition. They had guided, warned, and when necessary, allowed the forces of the cosmos to act in ways that maintained balance. But humanity was different, so fundamentally unlike any race they had encountered before. Their actions did not follow the expected trajectory of decline. Instead, they pushed forward with an intensity that seemed to challenge the very foundations of existence itself. Now, as the universe continued to unravel, the elder gods found themselves standing at the edge of a precipice, their towering forms unable to look away from the chaos humanity had unleashed. They had always been bound by the laws of creation, rules they had laid down to preserve the fabric of reality. But those laws seemed insufficient, inadequate to contain the destructive force of humanity's relentless hunger. They had long known that civilizations rise and fall, that every empire eventually falters under the weight of its own desires. But humanity did not simply consume, they consumed without limit, without care for the cost. Their hunger was a force of nature, unstoppable and insatiable. Even now, as galaxies fell one by one, they pressed forward, expanding into realms they barely understood, driven by a thirst that only grew more ravenous. It wasn't just their relentless pursuit of knowledge and power that set them apart, it was their refusal to acknowledge the dangers they faced. They had awoken forces that no civilization before them had dared to touch. Powers long sealed away by the elder gods themselves, forces too old, too ancient, and too destructive to be unleashed. Yet humanity had done just that, tearing through the very boundaries of existence, unafraid of the consequences. The elder gods had watched this unfolding chaos with a mix of sorrow and regret. They had warned countless races before humanity of the dangers that lay ahead, those who sought to grasp the stars beyond their reach, those who fed their desires without understanding their true cost. Every time they had seen civilizations fall, their ruins scattered like broken dreams across the void. But humanity did not listen. They did not seem to recognize the warnings etched into the fabric of reality itself. Their insatiable hunger was unlike anything the elder gods had encountered. It was not the hunger of mere survival, of expansion out of necessity. It was the hunger of a species that had transcended limits, a drive so vast and so relentless that it defied comprehension. The more they consumed, the stronger they became, the more they craved. And with each conquest, they tore through the very fabric of creation, disturbing forces far older and far more powerful than they could fathom. The elder gods had known of their potential for destruction, of the dangerous path they walked, but they had never anticipated how swiftly the universe would respond to their unchecked thirst. The forces they had unwittingly unleashed had begun to consume not just humanity, but everything in their path. Even the gods, who had watched and guided countless civilizations, now felt the tremor of forces beyond their control. The balance was breaking, and humanity, in their relentless pursuit of more, had become the very architects of their own fate. The elder gods felt the weight of their own inaction, of their inability to intervene, knowing full well that their decision to remain distant had perhaps sealed the fate of the cosmos itself. And as the galaxies burned and the echoes of distant screams faded into silence, the elder gods could only wonder, was this truly the end? Or was there still some unknown force, some unseen pattern that could yet emerge from the chaos humanity had wrought? The elder gods stood in the void, their colossal forms casting shadows over galaxies that had long since faded into silence. They had always existed beyond time, beyond the cycles that governed lesser beings. They were the watchers, the guardians, and now they felt the weight of their own failure pressing down on them. Humanity, in their relentless hunger, had pierced through the very fabric of existence, disrupting the balance of creation. The forces they had unleashed were no longer confined to the distant reaches of space. They had seeped into every corner of reality. The elder gods had long studied the patterns of civilization's rise, fall, and eventual decay. It was a cycle they had observed countless times, but humanity had broken that pattern. They did not fade as others did. Instead, they consumed, expanded, and grew stronger with each conquest. Their hunger was limitless, their drive unrelenting. They had awoken ancient forces, forces older than time itself, forces that had been bound and sealed by the very creators of the universe. Now, these forces were rising not as dormant relics, but as vengeful entities demanding retribution. The elder gods had watched this unfold with a mix of sorrow and regret. They had stood back, bound by rules they had always upheld, unwilling to intervene. They had thought themselves protectors of balance, but now they realized their inaction had played a part in this cosmic catastrophe. Humanity had ventured too far, disturbed powers that were meant to remain undisturbed. And those powers had awakened, furious and destructive, seeking a balance that no longer existed. As the destruction spread across galaxies, the elder gods could feel the fractures forming in the very structure of reality. The ancient forces that had been sealed away were no longer constrained by time or space. They moved with a purpose, tearing through the universe like wildfire. And humanity, once the architects of their own ambitions, had become pawns in a much larger, darker game. The elder gods had long been aware of humanity's unique nature. They had watched as humanity's hunger for knowledge, power, and control grew, unchecked by the limitations that governed other species. But what they hadn't anticipated was how deeply their desires would awaken forces far older and far more powerful than they could comprehend. These forces were no longer content to simply exist. They were driven by a need to restore balance in a universe that humanity had corrupted. Yet even in their immense wisdom, the elder gods found themselves questioning their own understanding. Were they truly powerless to intervene, or had they chosen inaction out of fear, out of a refusal to alter the natural order they had sworn to uphold? They could feel the universe tearing apart, stars collapsing, entire civilizations reduced to dust. And still they remained bound by ancient pacts, unable to move, to act, to prevent the inevitable. The silence in the void stretched long, heavy with uncertainty. The elder gods were no longer gods of creation, but witnesses to destruction. They had long watched as civilizations rose and fell, knowing their duty was to uphold the balance. But humanity had challenged that balance not by weakness, but by their own unrelenting strength. They had pushed beyond what even the elder gods had foreseen. Now, as the void consumed everything, The elder gods could only wonder if they had failed not because they were powerless, but because they had refused to act in time. The cosmos no longer seemed like a place of order, of law, of balance. It was a place of chaos, where the forces of destruction roamed unchecked. And in that chaos, humanity, once a species of curious explorers, had become the harbingers of ruin. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Sci-Fi Horizons Stories for more thrilling tales of science fiction and adventure. The balance of the cosmos hangs by a thread. What other mysteries await beyond the stars? Stay tuned for the next chapter of our journey into the unknown.